Okay, we're in section 31 of the notes, and this is the section on slope, a slope of a line. And we've defined it. We've discussed in this section. We gave you the concept, at least a visual concept of it. We talked about, verbally what it means. It means a ratio of the change in y over the change in x when you go from point to point. We also talked about the Greek letter delta y and delta, meaning a change in y, and the delta x meaning a change in x, and a formula. And we've also talked about, taking equations and solving them for y and just pulling the slope directly off the equation. All right, now granted, sometimes, lecture really doesn't mean much to students. They wonder when can I get to an example to see how I do these problems or what do you expect? And we'll do that now. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the examples. We'll go to the whiteboard, and we're going to try to illustrate what we've talked about in the lecture portion of the course. All right, so let me go to the whiteboard, and we'll do one problem at a time. And again, it's important you pay attention to this. We are hoping that you can understand what's being presented to you. But like always, if things are difficult, I got to do another share here. Just give me a second. And I'm going to share the screen with you. And I'm sharing the whiteboard with you now. So we'll do these problems now, and these are the examples. The examples are presented to you. Certainly, the reason we present them to you is we want you to do problems of this type. All right. So I'm reading number one. They want to find slope. And let me just remind you that slope, you can think of it as a rise over a run. You may want to think about slope as a delta y. That's really the change in the ordinate over the change in the x. Or you may want to think about slope as a formula between two given points. And that would be y2 minus y1, which is basically the change in y over x2 minus x1. All right. So, when I do these things over here, I'm not saying you need to do it in multiple ways, but it sure would be nice if you had one consistent way of doing it. Right. So what I want to do is I want to do it by the formula first. Right. To do that, I'm going to recommend that you label this, that this is x1. This is y1. It's my first point. This is my second point, x2. And this would be y2. So I'm going to put the formula down. The formula is over here. And I just want to be careful about it. Equals, we'll look at the key later. What would that be? Well, y2 is 3 minus y1. Well, y1 is minus 5. So minus 5 is plus 5. x2 is minus 6. And then it's going to be minus x1, which is minus 4. Right, look at the key later. I'm just going to do the arithmetic now. What do you get? 3 plus 5 is 8. Minus 6 minus 4 is minus 10. That just doesn't look right. So I'm going to say it's really minus 8/10. And that doesn't look right. You can reduce that. What does it give you? Sorry about that. Minus 4 this. I'm going to look at that. I'm going to check it. I want to see if it's in the answer key. And it is. M is minus 4 this. I want to do it another way, but again, don't feel like you have to do it any other way. If you can follow the formula and understand it, that's good news. Let me put this down. I'm going to put the x and the y down. Let's put the points down. 4 minus 5. And the other point is going to be minus 6, 3. Now, a lot of students have trouble with this, but I want to point out you should have an idea that things are changing. So I'm going to put this over here and this over here. And I'm going to say delta y. Now, here comes the tough part for some students. They're looking at this and say, what do you mean it's changing? Well, I hope you know that at least what's here and what's there are different. So if you're at minus 5 and you go up to 3, I'm going to say that's 8 units up. I'll put this over here. All right, let me do the delta x now. That's what I'm talking about, going in this direction here. If you're at 4 and go to minus 6, I hope you realize there has been a change and I have gone down in value. So 4 down to minus 6 would be minus 10 units. All right, what's slope defined as? Delta y over delta x. What's delta y? 8. What's delta x? Minus 10. And again, this reduces to minus 8/10. I shouldn't say reduces, rewrite minus 8/10, which is minus 4/5. Do we get the same answer? Of course we do. All right. Let's look at number 2. And again, number 2 is, find a slope and line containing these points over here. Well, I'm going to go through the same thing I've done before. I'm going to write down that this is x1, this is y1, this is x2, and this is y2. Let's write the formula down. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. M is, what's y2? Minus 7. I'll be very careful. I make mistakes sometimes. Minus 8. What goes on bottom? 4 minus 4. All right, let's keep going. What do you get over here? Minus 15 over 0. The slope is undefined. Let's look at our king, see how we did. I'll put this over here. Wow, we got it. All right, undefined. Again, for students that want to do the table, let me put the table down for you. And what's the table going to be? 4, 8. That's the first point. Second point is 4 minus 7. If you look at this, you can put down delta x. I like to go in the same direction every time, delta y. What's a delta y? If you're at 8 minus 7, you want down. How much go down? Well, it's going to be minus 15 down. And the delta x hasn't changed at all. It's 0. What's m? Delta y over delta x. By the way, this is the same thing as saying rise. That's the y, the ordinate, over the run. What's delta y? Minus 15. What's delta x? 0. It's still undefined. All right. Hopefully that's understood. All right. Let's put number 3 down. And number 3 got a lot of things going on here. And I just want to point out again, this is something that's a consistent theme throughout the course. Some students have a tough time following lecture. There's no doubt about it. They're struggling. So I want to point out, we try to support all people, right? The people that are fast, the people that are slow. We want everyone to get this material, right? If you're particularly slow at what I'm doing over here, you're confused, so there's nothing wrong with that. What you do is you watch these little spot videos. You can do that. My encouragement to you is this, though. Try to listen to lecture. Try to listen, including if you're just getting a little tiny bit of what we're saying. Try to listen, all right? So what I'm going to do over here is going to write down, the form that most students like. They like the form y equals mx plus b. That has something to do with this problem over here. So I'm looking at this thing over here and realize it's close, but it's not there. So I need to divide both sides by 3. That's like dividing every term by 3. And let's write that down now. What would you get? Well, 3y divided by 3 is just y. 2 divided by 3 is 2/3 of an x. And minus 6 divided by 3 is minus 2. So I'm looking at this thing, and I definitely know what the b is now. And I'll write this down for you. We'll check the key later. The b, what I'm pointing at, I'm looking at it. What is it? It's minus 2. I'll put a box in that. And the reason for that, they did ask for it. Well, X-intercept, I think I can do that, right? What's an X-intercept? An X-intercept is a point where the y is 0. Let's plug that in. Someone says, where would you plug it in? I'd plug in the original, and this is the original. Let's put this down. If y is 0, what do you get? 0 equals 2x minus 6. I would add 6 to both sides. I would divide by 2, and I get x is 3. So this is the x-intercept. All right, let's do the y-intercept now. All right. So it says, b, x-intercept, y-intercept. I know there's an m there too. We'll do that later. What's the y-intercept? That's when x is 0, right? So I'm still going to use this equation. What do you get? 3y. Well, if x is 0, that disappears, minus 6. Divide both sides by 3, and you would get y is minus 2. I want to point something out over here. You see this? Same number. What's the b? It's the y coordinate of the y-intercept. What's the slope now? Fairly easy to put down. Where am I looking? I'm looking here. And the slope can be read right from that. What's m? 2/3. Let's go to my K, see if we got it. M is 2/3. B is -2. X-intercept is 3, 0. Y-intercept is 0, -2. All right, let's do number 4. And what I'm going to do is, I don't know, maybe I'll do easy things first. Easy is what I think is easy. You may think something different is easy, right? But I'm going to put down X-intercept. What's intersect? It's a point where the Y is 0. Well, what would you get there? You would get 2x equals 9. And that's really easy to solve, right? What do you get? X equals 9/2. That's done. I like the Y-intercept. I think that's easy too. What's a Y-intercept? It's a point where X is 0. Well, let's do that. What do you get? 3y is equal to 9. What would that give me? Y would have to be equal to 3. So that's done. Right? So I've got the X-intercept, got the Y-intercept, but I don't have the B. Well, actually, I do have the B. What's the B? It's going to be the Y coordinate of the Y-intercept, which is 3. All right? I don't have the slope yet. I think the easiest way to get slope is to take the equation, this equation here, and solve for Y. Let me write that down for you. 3y is equal to -2x plus 9. Divide through by 3, what do you get? Y equals -2/3 of an x, and 3 goes into 9, nice number, times 3. Right, what's a slope? Very easy to read off. It's going to be -2/3. By the way, the B is also easy to read off. What's the B? The B is 3. We already have that written down. Let's check our key, see how we did. M is -2/3. B is 3. X-intercept is 9/2, 0. And Y-intercept is 0, 3. Okay, let's keep going. And let's put number 5 down. Now, number 5 conceptually for a lot of students is difficult. They're looking at it, they wonder, what would you do to do that problem over here? Well, they say determine the value of K. So I'm going to say, if we're going to determine the value of K, K would have to equal something. I don't know what it equals though. So it's to determine the value of K such that the points whose coordinates are given lie in the same line. Well, if the points lie in the same line, they must have the same slope. So what I want to do is I want to get the slope between these 2 points. Now, someone says, why are you picking those 2 points? They have numbers in it. So what's M going to be? Let's take a look. Change in Y's, -6 minus a -3 over the change in X's, 9 minus 0. What does this give me? -3 over 9, which is -1/3. And what do I know about that? I know that the slope between any points on the line has got to be -1/3. So I'm going to take these 2 points now and write the slope down. All right, so what are those 2 points? Those 2 points is slope. I'll write this down for you. Let's take a look at it. It's -3 minus a -2. That's not so bad, right? -3 minus a -2, and then 0 minus K. I know this is tough. Let's keep moving. What do you get? -1 on top, minus K on bottom. What does that give me? 1 over K. This slope must be equal to that guy's slope. Must be. They're on the same line. So let's write this down. 1 over K is equal to -1/3. I'm going to multiply both sides of this equation. And no, you don't have to do that. I'm just saying if I was formally going through that, by 3K, which is the LCD, what would you get? You would get 3 equals minus K. I would divide both sides by -1. And what would you get? You would get K is equal to -3. I'm going to look at the K, and I'm hoping it has the answers there. And it is. It says K is -3. All right. Okay. Number 6, I'll be honest with you, for a lot of students, this is difficult. It says, graph using slope and Y-intercept. So I'm going to claim that I would like to write down that information for you. And the slope is pretty easy to write down. So what's slope? M is 3/4. What's the y-intercept? Well, the y-intercept's a point where x is 0. Well, that couldn't be any easier. It's -2. All right, now someone says, how do you graph a line? You got to get 2 points. I have 1 point. Now, I know what they said. They said use the slope and the y-intercept. By the way, the y-intercept's being used. I'm going to use that point. Now I'm going to use a slope to get another point. How am I going to do that? Well, I got to pick a number. So another point, and someone says, what point would you choose? I think I choose something easy. Now I could choose 0 again, but that's the same point. I'm going to choose 4. If someone says, why'd you choose 4? It's easy. What do you get? Y equals 3/4 times 4 minus 2. Now, am I using the slope? Of course I am. I'm using 3/4. What do you get here? The 4's cancel. And what's 3 minus 2? It's 1. So I used it. And I'm going to plot those points down for you. Now, granted, it'd be nice to have graph paper, but not necessary. But I'll talk about another way of doing it as well. Let me put the graph paper down. This is the x-axis and y-axis. We're not looking for great pictures, by the way. But let me do this over here. 0 minus 2. That's right there. And then 4, 1, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1 up. Let me draw my line through that. It doesn't have to be perfect. That's the line. Now, the way some teachers teach is they say, you know what you do over here? Plot this point and then use this. Let me point out what they mean by that. What's M? M is 3/4. What does that mean? That's the delta Y, delta X. So what the teacher does is this. They start at this point here. They go up 3, 1, 2, 3, and then they go to the right 4. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. They would land on that point. We just graphed it. All right. Let's do this one over here, number 7. And number 7 doesn't look too bad. So graph the line using slope and the y-intercept. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to solve this equation for y. And what do you get? 2y is equal to 3x plus 7. All right, hope I didn't go too fast with that. I just add 3x to both sides. Divide both sides by 2, and you get 3 over 2x plus 7/2. All right. Now, this is where maybe I disagree with some teachers here. And I think the reason for that is I think, not all teachers have the same experience. And my experience with, not every student, but a lot of students, they have trouble with fractions. But I still want to write this down for you. So what's M? It's 3/2. What's B? Well, B is 7/2. What's the y-intercept? Well, when x is 0, y would be 7/2. Now, I'm not opposed to this. Some people say, I'm going to graph this, no more work. I got to be honest with you, though. For a large number of students, they have a tough time even locating the point. So what I'm going to suggest over here is that I would like integers, and we'll talk about the slope later. All right, we'll talk about that later. So someone says, why do you like integers? I think they're easy. So I'm going to go over here and make a little table up. And by the way, I'm not saying you like integers. You might say, no, I'm going to deal with the fraction. We'll deal with the fraction. We're not going to stop you. Let me see. I'm going to take a look at this. I'm going to try. I know it's hard. And I'm going to say, let's take a look at that. That's not easy, is it? Right? And I'm getting integers here. So I'm going to say 1 for x. And what would you get over there? I'll write this down for you. You get 2y minus 3 is equal to 7. I don't want to go too fast with that. So 2y minus 3 equals 7. Remember, if this doesn't work, I'm going to try another number. And I get a pretty good idea that at this level of the game, our fingers are going to work really nicely. So if I add 3 to both sides, I get 10. And if 2y equals 10, y would have to be 5. All right, that's a nice easy number, by the way, 1 and 5. I like that better than 0 and 7/2. But you know what? We're still going to do what they said. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to keep looking at this. And I'm going to take another number. And the number I'm going to pick now, let's take a look. Oh boy. I'm going to use, let's think about this. And by the way, when you're thinking, you may want to start thinking there's definitely a pattern to this problem. And I'm going to say, let's take a look there. I'm going to say -1. Let's see what we get. 2y plus 3 equals 7. Well, I'd have to take 3 from both sides. I get 2y is 4. So y would have to be 2. All right. I think that's not too bad. But again, you may disagree. You may say, I can't do that. Those numbers are too big. But you know what? It's really not that bad. It's like I use 1 and -1. All right, I'm going to go graph it. We'll graph down. And 1, 5. Let me do this over here. That's not so bad. And -1, 2, right? And again, I'm not saying it's easy for you. And I'm not looking for perfection, I'll be honest with you. By the way, I also want to plot the Y-intercept, which is 7/2. Now, 7/2, I think you probably know, is 3.5. Let's draw a line through that. Right, I want to go through the slope business with you, though. Right? And so did you use slope in the problem? I think so. How could I have not used slope? Lines have slope. And what's the slope? 3/2. Write this down for you. The slope of this line over here is 3/2. Now, what does that mean? If you took any given point, you'd have to go up 3 units. 1, 2, 3, and then you have to go over 2, and you get that point over there. In fact, I was using slope to do that. Here's the problem, though. Some teachers make you take this point and move up 3 and move over 2. Let me see if you can do that. So if you move up 3 from this point here, let me write this point down for you. This point over here is going to be 0, 7/2. And you can get a point. If you move up 3 from that, well, I'm going to point out what I mean by that. If you're at 7/2 and you move up 3, that's 6/2, right? What would that give you? 13/2. And then if you moved over 2, I hope you realize you'd be over here somewhere. And what's that point going to be? 2 for x, 13/2 for y. Okay, here's my claim again. Please stick with integers. They're so much easier. And most problems we give you are Diophantine. That means you're going to have inner solutions. Better still, they're going to be simple inner solutions. All right, number 8, a little more difficult. Let's put it down. They give me a point in the slope. Let's write it down. I think I'm ready to do this one just by writing it down. So I'm going to pull it to the side. Give me 1 second to do so. And I'm going to just get rid of everything. I'm going to do this one really quickly. And I'm going to put this down as a table. I need 2 points to graph a line, x and y. First point I have is -2, -1. I have a slope. The slope is 2/3. What does this mean? Delta y, delta x. Let's put this down. This would be delta y. This would be delta x. What's delta y? 2. What's delta x? 3. So what does it say? Let's do y first. I have 2. I have to go up 2. So if you're at -1, add 2, what do you get? 1. Very simple. If you're at -2 and you go up 3, you're at 1. I'm ready to plot my line here. Put it down, x-axis and y-axis. This is x, this is y. I like 1, 1 first, really simple point to put down. I see that. And I'm going to put down -2, -1. And again, we're not looking for great pictures. And draw your line through it. And you are done. Look at the key. Those are 2 points I chose. It's really not so bad. Thank you for paying attention. But again, I can't say it's time. You really have to go back and start doing homework. You got to do it. You got to practice. Thank you so much for listening.